Ah, the Venator model, my pride and joy. But before we talk about that monster of a model, I want to introduce this new series you're watching. For part 1 of War on Obanadia, there were 3 large vehicle models that I built. I will dedicate one video to each build, talking about its production, usage, and any other fun facts about it. And the first one I finished was the Venator. After completing the War on Obanadia trailer and the behind the scenes for it, I spent the entire rest of the summer building this absolutely huge mock, actually finishing the 3rd iteration of it the day before the start of school. I started by properly scaling it to my previously made Charger C70 build. I did this because it was the smallest ship I currently plan on depicting at this scale, so I built it as small as possible, knowing I would need to create far larger builds to go along with it. Now with the correct size, I found blueprints of the ship, which I overlaid with a grid so that each box represented a stud. This gave me all the information I needed to construct the massive build with far more accuracy than it would have if I had just winged it. The first iteration of the build went smoothly, and now I had a completed Venator. However, when I made the quick wireframe of how big the Munificent should be at my scale, the ships were nearly the same size, when I knew that the Separatist ship should be noticeably smaller. Confused, I counted the length of my Venator, and I had built the entire thing 10 studs short. Even with this arguably not entirely deal-breaking flaw, I had also misrepresented the height of the rear of the Venator, causing the Oreo trench to sag inaccurately. However, I had assumed that the length of the hull was to blame for that issue, not discovering the true cause until I finished building yet another fully completed model of the Venator. Although the length issue was fixed, the trench still looked terrible. Luckily, this was a much less fundamental change than the previous problem, but I still had to reconstruct the backside, the underside panel, and most painfully, but also quite fun, the greebling. On that topic, there are all sorts of fun parts and pieces I threw in there, including but not limited to wedge plates, telephones, droid arms, legs, wing clips, 1x1 clips, vents, binoculars, oculars, profile, bricks, handlebars, hot engines, dishes, and so much more. Now that I had finally completed the model, there are 3 shots I had to film with it. The first is just the guns firing. It is basically just the camera on the track, which is pretty insignificant. What is far more significant is the next shot of the Venator, which is when the gunship flies up to it, transitioning us into space. This one was a bit tricky to figure out how to do. The shot was looking up at the bottom of an incredibly heavy model. I couldn't hang it from above, as it would certainly not hold up, and I couldn't support it from the bottom because you would be able to clearly see the supports. With these problems in mind, I pulled a George Lucas and just thought about it. And as you may or may not have guessed, the entire shot was filmed upside down, and also in reverse, but that was just for ease of filming. The dual bridges and an off-screen support held up the model, while the camera was positioned higher up, looking down, so that when flipped, it appears as though the camera were down low, looking up. For the last shot we see of the Venator in part 1, it has its hangar doors open, and the ARC 170 flying out of it. I do have details representing the hangar built into the model, but the angle would have been really awkward to have it shown in the film itself. Also, as you can see in these behind the scenes images, I only built the space paneling that you would be able to see in the final shot, so anything that the Venator covers up, I wouldn't have to construct. But that's pretty much everything on the Venator. Next week I'll be talking about the AAT, so look forward to that. But for now, have a great week everyone, and see you then.